Well, ladies and gentlemen, Kamala Harris had a rally today in what seems to be a preschool gymnasium. Okay. And they're trying to say, well, it was limited, it was invite only, it was 300 people. She's calling it a rally. I mean, there were people in North Carolina, there were liberals pissed off they didn't get to go to this. And you've got half of the people there, they're all press. And I think the cameras are giving off more body heat than the amount of people at this event. And this is her big event where she's unveiling all of her policies and things like that. She did do that. But we've also got some other stuff. So the rally happens. She talks about some of her points. I'm going to get to some of the. It's just so weird to see her continue to distance herself from the Biden administration to the point where Biden is still saying, oh no, she still believes in Bidenomics. I mean, someone's going to have to ask her at some point, do you believe in Bidenomics at this point? It's obvious you don't. And they're trying to use the pandemic now. That's the other thing, because people took the clip of her saying that, oh, before the pandemic, which essentially was the Trump era, before the pandemic, this food product was this amount of money and now it's 50% up, and that food product is that amount of money and now it's 60% up. They're trying to use the pandemic as cope. That's what they're going to do. They're blaming it on the pandemic. So they're trying to take away credit from Trump and also take away blame from Biden and say, oh no, it's just the pandemic. That's what caused it. It wasn't Trump's policies, to where we had a great economy in 2018, 2019, and into 2020. And that's why Trump's approval rating was very high. It was like 45, 46%. And experts were saying it was going to cross 50% around like July of 2020. And Trump was like projected around 430 electoral votes from big time experts, in politics. They were projecting that. And then the pandemic happens, and now they're blaming the pandemic. Oh, it's not Biden's fault, the inflation. He did the Inflation Reduction Act. It didn't do anything. I mean, inflation didn't continue to go higher with the act, but it also didn't reduce it at all. It was a dead act. JD Vance is weird. I do remember this guy. This is just Barron Trump turns 18 today. He's fair game now. And you look at this dude and, oh my God, you got to feel bad for Barron Trump. I remember tweeting about that or Xing about it, whatever you want to call it. Where did all the big crowds go? I mean, that's a preschool, man. There's three rows there. Remember, they made fun of Trump for when he went to North Carolina, like Asheville. He had 3,000, and then it was reported there were thousands outside lined up. She gets like 300 people, and it's a private event. No, it's a private event. There's more cameras there than there were people. But it's like, you called it a rally. They said North Carolina rally. This is big. She's going to do all of her policy. And so it's like, at a certain point, the bandwidth is gone from this campaign. They can't fake it. And this is what ends up happening. And they're like, all right, we're scheduling a big arena, even 2,000, 3,000 people. We can't fill it. What do we do? Well, let's just make it invite only. And they've made other rallies invite only as well, just to make sure they filled them up. Like in Arizona, when they had 15,000 people and they tarped off sections and the curtains came down, and people liberals oh, it's sold out. No, you just don't know how the curtains work. The curtains come down and it blocks off all the empty upper deck seating. That's a common thing in sports that they do. And that was invite only. That was like 15,000 people, but it's only via invite, so they make sure they get the amount of people there. Remember the first big rally, they had to bring on the rapper, and that's just nothing that really any politician should need to stoop to, especially if it's your first rally where you're trying to run for the. And this is the context of it. It's a paid fundraiser with 300 people there. She advertised it as a rally. Raleigh Dems are big mad. They thought they were going to see a Trump-style rally. Nope. She's right on this. She did advertise it as a rally, and there's you've got there's more security personnel there than there are people actually watching the rally. We've got Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Is this confirmed? I would imagine, you would think, but you don't know what these people, sometimes they say stuff. But Donald Trump and Elon Musk round 2 happening on Monday. I would imagine that's probably when they were both available to do it. Otherwise, you would like it to happen on Thursday, which would be the Dems' biggest day for the DNC. But still, that'll at least take some of the wind out of the sails of the Democrats. In terms of that, and Monday should be a pretty big day in politics, with Biden speaking one final time, about, how great he was, and they're just going to, kiss up to Biden and say he was this amazing leader. And then you've got Trump and Elon talking possibly in a Twitter space on the other side of it. So that's going to be a huge political day when it comes to that. You've got Cuban and Jon Stewart angry at Elon Musk on X. I mean, these guys are very... Cuban's jealous. Jon Stewart didn't seem jealous, but Cuban is jealous of Elon Musk and the reach he has because they're both billionaires, but Musk is on to the next level. He's on a level above everyone. And they're like, oh my God, Musk is turning X into a conservative platform. He's influencing everyone. Where have you been the past 7 years? I mean, before Elon Musk bought X, I remember back in 2020 and 2021, it was so bad. If you're a conservative, if you don't like the left, it was a miserable experience. They controlled everything. They controlled everything to the point where they were willing to silence an October surprise story that would have very likely influenced an election based on how close the election was. They silenced it. And that's why when Trump gets asked, was 2020 rigged? I mean, it's admitted they influenced. I mean, they silenced the story. That's what happened. And then they said, okay, it's real. We admit it. We don't even have to talk about mail-in votes or voting machines. They've admitted it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So yes, it was manipulated through big tech. That's all Trump needs to say when he gets asked. Because it's like, oh, it's this checkmate. You really think it was rigged? Well, no, it was manipulated through big tech. There was one October surprise. The October surprise was silenced because they didn't like it. They called it misinformation and disinformation when they knew it wasn't, or at least they didn't know, but they called it that so they could get the story silenced, and that possibly helped Biden because of how close the election was. So you've got all of that. And then you've got CNN, this anchor saying that the fake headlines they're okay and it's fair game to do that. And then she says in this clip, you know what, I'm just going to play this clip because I'm not going to sit here and explain this, but it's a little bit complicated, but you'll see.
Is this sometimes in those stories that on first glance look like a story by the outlet you're reading, but if you don't, if you look at it more closely, it says sponsored content. I mean, this is something that the search engines do. It's part of the way they generate ad revenue. So there's nothing about it that is
all right, well, she's not explaining that right. She's not explaining it right. What they did was they edited the actual headline and the description. So it's not like, oh, it's this sponsorship thing, and then there's a little thing, and then it's the actual headline. When you click on a headline on Google, that's the thing that they edited. And you could see it's like, it says inflation is down. Tim Walz served honorably for 24 years. They changed the literal headline. She's talking about like, oh, they paid for advertising, and when you go to a Google page, you can see Kamala Harris and good things about her. No. They edited the headline of the stories, and then you click on the story, and this is what was happening to libs. They would get suckered in. They would see a headline. It's like, Tim Walz is the greatest ever, and then they'd click on it, and it'd be just a random story about a dog or something. And it's from CNN. It's like, what is this? So this is what they've been doing. And you can see what's going on with their campaign and how it's unraveling. You've got all these clips. You've got people coming out and say this is ridiculous. What's going on with Tim Walz? Kamala's telling him to suck on a cantaloupe in a clip. It's just so strange. And this is not what's happening. Someone needs to tell this lady. They edit the thing that you click on. That's what they edit. It's not like, oh, it's just some promotion at the bottom. And I mean, Google admitted, they said, this is not good. We didn't know this was happening. I mean, it goes like this. And the CNN even said, we didn't see this. Google's like, well, this is probably not good. We shouldn't do this. But it's a liberal, so we got to keep it on the down low. If this was Trump, they would have immediately removed it, and Trump would be sued by these big time networks. They would have sued Trump because this is not legal. You should not be able. Think about this. CNN puts out a story. How can you use that as propaganda by buying up some type of ad space, changing the headline of the story on the Google search, and then changing the description? How is that not illegal in terms of elections? I mean, that is editing the election. You're editing the election. You're editing and propagandizing a certain thing that may or may not have been said positively about you. You're just completely changing it. So guys, that is the update. Musk and Trump, another one coming up. They're trying to take away some of the steam from the DNC. We will see if they're able to do it. And we've also got this weird thing, and they were like, well, it's invite only. It's only 300 people. And they're like at some preschool, and you can hear like the bells ring. The kids got to change classes. I mean, this is, it's like, This is pathetic. Trump goes to a place that libs said, oh, it's only 2,500. He went to North Carolina, it's only 2,500. Yeah, it was a sellout. There were 2,500 people inside. It was overflowing. And this is what happens with these Trump rallies. He'll get 15,000 people inside and there'll be like 30, 40,000 on the outside. Remember when he had the outdoor, what was it, New Jersey rally in March or April? There's like 50, 60, 70,000 people here. I mean, it's just a sea of people. It's just an unbelievable amount of people. And that's what Trump gets. And of course, Trump's won 3 straight Republican primaries. He's got a rabid fan base. And then they're like, oh, it's a cult. But then they just install Kamala like a brain chip into the back of liberals' heads. Now it's Kamala. Now you support Kamala. The only reason they weren't supporting Biden was because they knew he was going to lose. And that's why the libs started coming out and saying, no, we're actually against Biden, because they started to realize it. Some of them didn't. Some of them still liked Biden. But a lot of them were like, all right, we can see what's going on. We're done with Biden. Let's move on because we actually need to win this election. And whoever it would have been, this is not a thing where it's like, oh, Kamala is this great leader. If they would have picked Whitmer at the, in an open DNC, if they would have picked Mark Kelly, if they would have picked, they wouldn't have done Newsom, but if they would have picked Shapiro, all of these people would be supporting those candidates. But it is Kamala because she was the VP and she was the easiest in terms of getting the campaign funding to her. And that's when they started their huge ad blitz, but now it's worn off. And they're trying to reignite it with the DNC, and they've got to deal with all the ignorant kids, like the 17-year-old kids who just go and just throw a bunch of crap and start fires and everything when they talk about Palestine and all that, and they're going to have to deal with that. They need to make sure that calms down by Thursday. They don't want that to be the big story, but Trump is trying to counter it. We'll see if he's able to do it. Remember, we got the polls that came out today that said Trump is basically like leading every swing state. I'm not lying. Like, there's polls that have come out with Trump up in Pennsylvania, Trump up in Michigan, Trump up just nationwide. Rasmussen saying Trump's up by 4 everywhere. These are big-time polls now admitting, even in a Wisconsin poll, which has normally been horrible for Trump, the way they poll Wisconsin, Trump normally outperforms the polls by 7 or 8 points. Even in Wisconsin, Harris is only up by maybe a few points, 1.7. And you can see Biden in 2020 was up by 6. Hillary was up by 9.5. So that just goes to show you how the polls work in Wisconsin and really a lot of these swing states, but normally they're very inaccurate. So guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.